son to school or her child to school and did not go back to pick them up. And she has another child too, a two-week-old
who is also missing and is part of this search, this increasingly frantic search, Terry. As the days go by, we're now entering our 5th day of an investigation by the Austin Police Department, as well as I reported last night, the Texas Rangers have also joined this investigation, as well as the FBI. So with each passing day, with each passing hour, with each passing minute, there is an increased urgency to try to find Heidi Broussard and two-week-old Margot. And that search, of course, happening in Austin, but could potentially be expanding in the days to come as investigators try to get new leads and piece together what exactly is going on. Terry, I want to tell you, and I know that a lot of people will find this almost inconceivable, but police are not ruling out at all, as a matter of fact, the possibility that Heidi Broussard and her two-week-old may have left on their own.
And there's kind of a theory here behind that, right? I mean, isn't there?
Well, there's the theory that perhaps she could be with a friend at perhaps some sort of shelter. You know, people often, as police will tell you, go into the wind on their own for their own, very personal reasons at times. And that within itself is not a crime. People can do that. They are legally allowed to do that. And they don't owe the public, at least, or law enforcement, any explanation. They're grown adults and that they can do that.
And the officers, for that matter, have almost an obligation to protect some of those people too if they do this for various reasons. Right?
That's absolutely the case. I'm told that oftentimes police may not even be able to determine, for example, the residents of a shelter, that there are shelters that sometimes people will go to, and that is highly confidential information. So if a woman or a man, for that matter, checks themselves into a shelter like operated by Safe Place here in Austin, that information is often very difficult for police to get. So they have not ruled out that possibility, again, that Heidi Broussard left on her own for her own very personal reasons on Thursday. But Terry, of course, the other side of that coin is she and is her two-week-old a victim of foul play? That is, of course, the major concern, not only by law enforcement, but all of us in the community as well.
Absolutely. I know a lot of you are starting to tune in, so if you do have questions about this case, go ahead and let us know here on the Facebook Insider page, and that way we can try to get Tony to answer some of them. I think it's interesting because there's another missing persons case that is being investigated in Cedar Park, so to have two of these right around the same time, I think has generated a lot of concern in this community. I mean, obviously we're a growing community, and so to have situations like this is not typical for Austin.
That's right. Of course, law enforcement does not have any belief that those two cases are connected. In fact, they have every reason to believe that they are not connected. But you are right. Both of these instances have absolutely put the community on edge, and there is this growing, as we've been describing, this growing urgency to try to find Heidi Broussard and two-week-old Margot. You know, Terry, I wanted to talk about some of the things that police have been doing in recent days to try to find them. And again, they want to find them whether or not they are safe and have left on their own, or obviously if this turns into a criminal investigation, they're going to be wanting to gather evidence, as they've been doing for the past 4.5, going on 5 days now, to try to build a case should this become a criminal matter. Again, I just want to say at this point, authorities are stressing that they don't yet have really any evidence of a crime at this point. Again, I know that's almost inconceivable for a lot of people, knowing that we have a missing mother and a missing two-week-old. But nonetheless, investigators are doing a number of things that they would do in a typical investigation like this. Obviously, they would be searching her apartment where she lived in South Austin for any kind of forensic evidence there. Also, Terry, as you know, and as we've all learned as part of these investigations, excuse me, video evidence gathered from not only her apartment complex, but also neighboring businesses in that whole area. You can imagine that investigators have been going almost door to door to try to find out residents that may have their own cameras or even more sophisticated cameras at businesses. So that's a major thing that investigators are doing. You can also rest assured that they are interviewing all of Heidi Broussard's friends and family here in Austin. And in some cases, Terry, likely going as far as to actually build a timeline of their whereabouts at the time that Heidi Broussard and Margot went missing.
Kimberly Castro brought up a good point. Wouldn't she have taken her other child? No mother would take one and then leave one behind. I think that is why so many people have questions.
Right.
And some people question, would the FBI necessarily get involved if they really did think that she left on her own? Can you
Well, I think that the FBI might be involved for a number of reasons. Number one, if there is a hint or even a possibility that perhaps she has traveled across state lines or that there is some sort of interstate matter going on here, that would be one reason that the FBI might get involved. But frankly, I think they are also have been asked to help just because of a manpower issue. The more resources the FBI may have access to different types of information or different resources than local police may have. So there are very real reasons for the FBI to get involved here.
Laura Childers O'Neill asked, can't they ping her cell phone? There's a reason why they can't, right? Or they've tried?
Well, I would assume that they have tried, but obviously, cell phone pings are very difficult because they only work if the cell phone is on and activated. We saw that with the Austin bomber case, for example, where the suspect in that case had his phone turned off. So pings simply don't work if your cell phone is turned off. And so obviously if you are a victim of a crime and the perpetrator has turned your cell phone off, that would prohibit investigators from being able to trace it. But similarly, if you don't want to be found and you deactivate or turn your cell phone off, that would thwart those efforts as well.
Really
I would also imagine, Terry, at the same time that all of this is happening, investigators are trying to run search warrants to get more digital data from Heidi Broussard's cell phone as well. That might give them further insights about not only where she has been since she vanished on Thursday, but in addition to that, who was she communicating with in the days before, and where was she in the days before? Trying to really create a sketch, if you will, about her activity in the days leading up to their disappearance.
Can you talk at all, a lot of people here are talking about her fiance, and he did speak,
Right.
I guess, several days ago. I would assume investigators look at video like that pretty closely too to see how people react. It's easy for, us to read into things,
Right.
but I mean, this can be a stressful time, and so people
Right.
don't necessarily act the way you may expect them to act in a situation like this.
Yeah, I think investigators are always curious about someone's behavior and can kind of potentially use that to signal a lead that they need to go down or not. But Terry, what investigators deal with are the facts. So you can rest assured they've asked him, where were you? Can you build a timeline of your whereabouts? Can we talk to people you were with during that timeline? And if that all checks out, well, then, perhaps the investigation moves in a different direction. But, I think in terms of trying to read into body language or someone's mood or how they may seem to you and I, well, we've never been in that situation, so it's easy to think about how we might act, but that may be very different from how someone else may respond.
I don't know if you know the answer to this, but the two children that she had, are they both related to the fiance? Do you know
I
that?
don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, a couple questions about that too. A lot of people are just saying they're praying for her, praying that they're found safe. It's tough, this time around the holidays too. I think everybody, when you hear cases like this, and I don't know if she had any history. Have the officers talked at all about, did she have any history of, leaving for a couple days and not talking to family?
I think that's all what they're trying to piece together about her and learn everything they can about her. Again, I mentioned that in addition to interviewing all of her friends and family and talking about, their whereabouts in some cases, they're also trying to create as full of a picture as they can about her as well. You can rest assured that some of the questions they are asking are just that. Does she have a history of going somewhere, of leaving for a few days, kind of checking out, if you will? I don't know that they have reached any sort of conclusive answer about that, but you can rest assured that those questions are getting asked.
Again, they didn't find her cell phone, but
Right.
her purse was left behind. Her son was left at the school.
Right.
She
Truly vanished without a trace.
She's not originally from Austin.
That's
She's
my
from,
understanding. Yeah, a neighboring state, yeah.
Police expecting to have a press conference later this afternoon.
Right, and a little more than an hour, and I think it'll be very interesting to see how much light they shed on where they are in the investigation, where they see this heading. You know, Terry, as we also know from covering stories like this over many years, both of us, authorities almost always have information that they are not going to be willing to release to the public. So in that way, I'm not sure that we are going to get a lot of new information, a lot of new developments in this case, but I know that police want the public to know that they are working on this case very, very hard and turning all of the stones, and again, hoping that this resolves itself in a very positive way.
We'll definitely keep folks updated, and we appreciate your questions here. Feel free to keep asking, and we'll try to answer some of those today. And the press conference is at 1 o'clock
1 o'clock,
today.
yep.
And so tune in here, and again on KVUE at 5 and 6 and 10, and we'll have the very latest for you. Tony, thanks for your insight. We appreciate it.
You bet.
And thanks for tuning in. We'll see you soon.